Everybody, so today we're continuing on with our watercolor ABCs, and today we're looking at the letter B, which is going to stand for a couple of different things, the main one being brushes. We'll also take a look at blooms and the blotting technique. So the first brush I'm going to discuss is the round brush. This is the most versatile brush that anybody doing watercolor, like this is like your go-to brush. And it's called a round because it has a rounded belly. That's what you call the base of a brush, is the belly, and then a nice pointy tip. So these are just a few of mine. Some of these are Grumbacher, some are Blick. I have other brands as well. You're basically looking for something that's going to give you a nice pointy tip when you are painting. And they come in different sizes, and with round brushes, the larger the number, the bigger the brush. For example, here's a 2, 4, a 6, and an 8. So depending on what you're doing, that depends on what size brush you need. Also, the larger the brush, the more water it can hold. So I'm going to use a 4 here. I'm just going to grab some green. Okay. So a round brush, if you hold it like straight up and down, can give you a really thin line. If you hold it on its belly, I'm going to do this one above, you can go thin and then into thick. You'll notice here that gives us a nice leafy shape. And so you can do lots of different things with round brushes. This is what most people use. If I had to say a couple sizes that I frequently use, a 2 a lot, and probably an 8. An 8 is nice, like if you're doing flowers, because you can do that nice point for a petal here. Can give us like that nice star-shaped flower. And you just press down on the belly of this brush to get that nice thick petal look. Okay, so that's just a basic flower. You can obviously do one much better with a round brush, just showing you the basics. Alright, so next, I'm going to talk about this bad boy. This is called a water brush. This one that I have is by Pentel. It's used for when you are traveling, painting outside, and so the water is in this part of the brush, and then as you squeeze this part, the water will come out here. So if you're painting outside, because at this time right now I would not recommend traveling, you can just squirt a little water to activate your paint, and then you can start painting with it. And a lot of these can have a thicker belly on them as well. So you can do larger areas. And then to clean them off, need a paper towel. You would just squeeze into your paper towel and wipe. And the water cleans the bristles from the inside. Next, let's take a look. Ooh, this is one of my favorites, the fan brush. So it's called a fan brush because it looks like a fan. And this is a very stiff fan brush. This is by Lowe Cornell. I have no idea where I got this. The way I like to use it is for foliage and grass. Be careful, not every fan brush is going to be stiff like this. Like some of them are actually very floppy. All right, so like one way I can use it, I'm going to take my round brush, just as an example. I'm going to lay down some green color here. So I'm pretending like this is some grass. And instead of taking it, you know, a small brush and trying to do each individual blade of grass, which can be very tedious, you just take the very tip of your fan brush and flick up when the paint is still wet. If the paint is dry or drying, this will not work as well. There you go, got some grass. Fan brushes can also be used for different things, for texture as well. Sometimes I can use it to kind of, let's see what I'm doing here in a second. So I know this is a very oversized looking flower, but it can give you the nice soft edge, petally looks for a flower. Just gonna drop in some yellow. And then when it's dry, you can add more details to define the edges. So like right now it's looking very carnation-y, carnation-esque, maybe. Okay. All right, so done round, water, fan. Okay, so there's also detail brushes. And so those have very fine tips on them. So this is one that I have. This is still technically a round, but you can see it's like teeny, teeny, tiny. This is called a 000. It is very thin and short. So this would be for doing tiny little details or very tiny thin lines. Because it is so small, it does not hold a lot of water. This is great, like if you're doing itty bitty little details, maybe on a flower, like if I come back to this one when it's dry, I can use it to create those lines. So like if this was a petal, like this brush is really good for creating those detail lines there. You can keep going, but anyway. All right, 4 down, 4 to go. Okay, so the next one I'm going to talk about is a wash brush. Ooh. So I don't have an actual wash brush, I just have a brush I use as one, but it's basically just a really big brush to get a lot of color on in one swoop. So this is actually an angle shader, but I use it as a wash brush, but it's just like a large brush to get a lot of color down. All right, so let's see. Ooh, grab this nice purple. Okay, so it lets you kind of swoop in a lot of color. And you can like smooth it out. So you'll notice I'm kind of putting some water drops in. I'll tell you what those are in a little bit. Okay. So washes are good if you're doing like a base layer on something, skies, foreground areas. All right, so next I'm going to talk about an oval brush. This brush is relatively new for me. I am still trying to master this one. It's called an oval wash. So it's kind of like a round in that it's thick and then it gets thin, but it's not fully round all the way. I know a lot of people use these brushes for leaves as well, because you can get a nice pointy tip and then press down for a leaf. I have not found any other uses for this just yet because I am still learning how to use it. You can also drag it that way too. And then I've also seen where people use it as like to stamp. So you basically, you're almost holding it parallel with your paper, and you just press and stamp, and that can give you a nice leaf shape as well. All right, what are we up to? So I got detail, water brush, oval, ooh, dagger, okay. So this is another brush that I'm still getting used to. This is a Princeton one, what the same brand the Oval Wash one was. I got them in a set just to kind of try out. So these are used a lot for foliage as well. So you can basically use the tip to get a stem and then out for a leaf. Again, I'm still practicing using this, and at this point I can only go to my right. If I try to go from my left, it just ends up looking horrible. Let me show you. So, oh, actually that one wasn't too bad. Maybe I am getting the hang of it. See, that's what they normally look like. Okay. These are also fun if you have two colors you want to use at once. So let's say I wanted, let me mix up some color. Another tip with brushes is to get, like, especially if you have some really nice brushes, also get like a set of really cheap ones for color mixing so you don't ruin your good brushes with all this like digging and activating the paint and stuff. These I got from Amazon. I think they were 10 in a pack for $12, but they're nice because they don't shed their bristles. A lot of cheap brushes will. All right, so if I want to do something similar to this, but with this brush, I'm going to load the very tip with my red and the base of it with some yellow. And look at that, isn't that cool? Can blend it out like that. Again, still trying to practice with this brush. I'll get there. I'll get there. All right, and then last but not least, I have these two that I just picked up. One's called a Filbert, and the other one is called a Chisel. Let me make sure I'm spelling chisel right. Yes, I was. Okay. So a Filbert brush is kind of like the Oval Wash brush, except it doesn't come to a point. So these are good for things like clouds, like if you're painting a cloud. You can also use them for different flowers. So their strokes will be rounded. So these can also make some nice shapes. A little more water there. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop there. So those are fun. And then this one is a chisel, which is good if you're trying to get some really straight lines, like straight edges, and do things like if you're trying to get like rectangles. Like these is good, these is good. Lord have mercy. Oh, I've been out of work too long. I'm a teacher. I'm on day 3 of this, basically like a quarantine. We're not supposed to go anywhere. They closed school for what seems like forever, but it's another month. Tentatively, we get to go back April 15th. Okay. So those are the brushes that I have. Now the other 2 Bs were, one was blotting. So if you look at this here, you can take paper towel, and this is called blotting, like just picking up color with a clean paper towel. This is good for making clouds. It's also good like if you have, I just want a round brush. Okay. So if you just have like way too much water on your paper, I'm going to do this up on the, no, I'll do it here. So if you've got this color and you're like, oh, there's way too much color on there, or oh, there's way too much water. And if you have too much water in a spot, it's going to cause a bloom, which I'll talk about over here. So you can also use this to just blot up some of that excess and then redistribute. So if you find, oh no, this is going to cause a bloom, blot up some of it and then go over it again to redistribute. Because blooms like this happen when one part of the paper is drying faster than the other part. So when I did a basic wash, the purple part was already starting to dry, and then I dropped in water in certain areas, and now those are not going to dry at the same time, and it's going to cause this bloom. Sometimes it's also called a hard edge or cauliflower. It depends on like what you're doing. Like things like this are really cool if you're working on planets or moons, you know, celestial things. They're really nice in skies because they kind of make that cloud look. So if you're into it, you can just drop some water to create it. If you're trying to get rid of it, blot up some of the excess water and redistribute with your brush. All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.